first years of our community's life were all about deconstructing our religion. And as you've been hearing, the first part of that deconstructing process was deconstructing our Christian story. Now that was important because the stories we tell ourselves, the things that we carry around inside of ourselves, stories shape instincts. And instincts shape behaviors. And behaviors shape a whole community, a whole religion. So it was good that we started there, but after we did, we weren't finished rethinking. One way we talk about religion in our community, religion is a house that spirituality lives in. A house is a good thing. It's good to have a chair to sit on. It's good to have a table to eat at. It's good to have a place to go to live our lives and to love our people. But healthy religion is the place that we go, that if we're there, our spirituality thrives and grows and flourishes. It's a place we go that if we are there, we join others who are doing the things that change people so that we are together becoming better people. Those things, again, we call the spiritual practices. And if we do them, we will strengthen our attachment to the inner divine and weaken the power of ego self, thinking and acting. So, in the years after we worked on our story, we started exploring the ancient spiritual practices from our own tradition and from other traditions. And what we built over time, you've heard it, it's the organizing principle of our community, working the circle. 4 categories of transformative practices: communal, contemplative, learning, and serving practices. Now, with our kids, we have always been blessed in our community to have people who are really good at making these practices age appropriate and fun for kids. Now, I expect that's going to continue, positive experiences of the practices when they're young, setting our kids up for a lifetime of practice. Now, because our kids team is so good at this translating the practices work, for this video, I'm going to focus a little bit less on how we translate to our kids and more about why we do this for our kids. And let's start by talking about the communal practices first. We'll talk about all 4. Here's what we adults do. We do brew crew, or we do bunco night, or we join a book club, or we do a self-awareness group or an Enneagram group. And we do these things because community transforms us. Being part of a community on the spiritual journey together is transformative. And over the years, we've put the communal practices first. And we've done that with our adults, and we've done that with our kids. Being part of a community, belonging to a community, makes the other spiritual practices work. So we invite one another into community. I was talking with a new group of teen leaders coming in to take on their role with our teenagers, and I described their gig, their role, like this. The first thing you do is you work hard to get our teenagers to come to events. If they don't want to, which happens often, it's usually because they're afraid that when they get there, they will not be accepted or they will not be cherished. So we work really hard to get them to come, but then step 2, we work just as hard to make sure when they do come, they are accepted and they are cherished. They have fun, yes, but more than fun, loved, cherished, and accepted. Also, we make sure the unincluded kids get included at our events. We make sure that the kids who are out get invited in. Now, when the group doesn't include, we, the leaders, make include happen. And for the kids who get included, yeah, that's great. But the kids who see the kids who are not included getting included, they start to get the message. Oh, I see. Here, we invite everybody in. Also, at those events, anytime we're together, we watch out for conflict between our kids because that's great for us. It's been our experience that if conflict gets resolved, and we know a lot about how to do that, if we repair rifts that in school never get repaired, in the neighborhood never get repaired, we start to help our kids realize, oh, yeah, we are a community. We do invite one another in, and we do work things out with one another. Now, we do this work with our kids, and when we do, we are drawing from all the work we do together as adults. We draw from all of our self-awareness work and our Enneagram work, our conflict resolution work, the trust building, the affection building. We draw from all that work. We use all those skills to make sure that our kids do experience authentic community together. They do practice the communal practices together. Because do that, the other practices tend to fall into place. We say this all the time, that the communal practices aren't the most important in the quadrant or in the circle, but we do them first. Because if we create spaces where people belong, kids and adults, if we help one another experience inclusion and acceptance and belonging, it fundamentally changes the group and makes all the other practices just go better. So we invite and we model community, and we work toward authentic friendships, spaces our kids can speak honestly. Community is the first rung on the ladder of spiritual practice. So we teach it, and we model it, and we cajole it, and we show it to them. We have book clubs in our homes, and we let our kids watch us do it. We go to lunch or a beer after church, and we let them watch us doing community. We create space for them to do community themselves, the communal practices. That's the first. Second, the contemplative practices. Again, in age-appropriate ways, we teach them to breathe, to quiet the noisiness of their minds, to welcome, to let go. We normalize that we do these kinds of things. We start with simple, beginner mind ways, and then we parents model it for them. We teach it to them when we're together, but then we go down as adults and we sit on the couch in the morning or in the evening, and we let them see us doing it. One mom told me how she would come down and meditate on the couch in the morning, and her son would come down and sit on the chair nearby, and he'd just fall asleep, internalizing as he was, yeah, this is what mom does. This is what spiritual people do. And when we do that, we are teaching our kids to be contemplative and to be suspicious of their thoughts. They watch us being suspicious of our thoughts. That's what contemplative practice does. We are teaching them their only thoughts. They're not the one and true truth. Later, they're going to need to know that, because they're going to find that their thoughts also will often be unhelpful, sometimes harmful. Later, they're going to realize, me too. My ego hijacks me as well. I also get overwhelmed by compulsive thoughts and emotions and reactions and responses. I also am dominated by unhelpful thought patterns, maybe criticism or defensiveness, maybe insecurity or people pleasing. Maybe I blame, maybe I fight with resistance. We teach our kids how to do these practices, what it feels like when we do them. And when we do, we offer them small experiences of letting go of the compulsive power of our thoughts and feelings, laying those things down. We give them that foundation now so that later, when they see that their own mind has this power to entrap them, they'll know where to go and they'll know what to do. So the communal practices, the contemplative practices. Also, we don't so much teach our kids a lifelong love for learning, more we just celebrate it when it's happening. Love of learning is embedded into our human nature, so we model it. Maybe sometimes we dismantle obstacles that our kids might pick up from the culture, anything that would suppress their natural curiosity, rigid thinking, or fear that maybe they're not smart enough, or social pressure to not be a lifelong learner. Education theory is a huge and complex field, but in our families and in our church, we make fostering a lifelong love of learning much simpler. We tell stories. That's how we teach a lifelong love of learning. When smartphones were first coming out, I did a lot of Google searching. I did a lot of inventorying of my own life, looking for stories, looking for important stories that I needed to tell my kids. I would scour my own life for stories. I would look through fables, I'd look through fairy tales, and when I found a good one, I'd put it into my phone with a few reminder notes about how to talk about it. And then whenever I was about to get in the car with my kids, before they would jump in, I would quickly scroll through my file. And then in a kind of planned, spontaneous way, I'd say, hey, have I ever told you the story about? Now I do the same now with my grandkids. My file's better now because the internet is better now. I have stories in my file about Leif Erikson, about Martin Luther King, about Madame Curie and radiation, stories from Buddhism, and stories from Judaism and Christianity, and a whole bunch of stories from Grandpa's life. But especially, I tell virtue stories. I tell stories about honesty and diligence and courage and justice. I do watch out for story fatigue. I want to leave them wanting more. Stories should be fun, not a burden. But stories are deeply human, and storytelling is not as hard as we often make it out to be. And if we do tell stories, lifelong love for learning. Now, parents, maybe you're like me, maybe you're not that spontaneous, maybe you're not that creative. I needed a file in my phone. I needed some help from Google. I can talk in non-boring ways, but I needed help remembering what to talk about, what stories that I should tell. Also, we can encourage our kids to read stories at bedtime. We can read to them and encourage them to talk about their nighttime reading as we talk about the stories we read them. Stories build learning love for a lifetime. Finally, like the other practices, we don't so much teach our kids lives of service, we model it. When our teen group has gone well, we have organized our events to alternate every other month. 1 month we'll have a community building event, and the next month we'll have a community service event. As I'm recording this, our community service team is looking for more spaces where our younger kids can participate in community service with us. We can also highlight service when our kids do it on their own. Look at you being compassionate with that lady. Look at you helping your cousin out. Look at you helping clean up. We can tie their very specific behavior to a tradition, the practice of service, which is a transformative environment. Work in the circle. That is so important what you're doing right now. Boy, that's how human beings change. Good on you. We start early integrating the ancient wisdom of service because service does change us. Service helps us live lives that are larger than me or mine. And we can help our kids build the habit early. We can help our kids by building the service habit early, develop empathy and compassion. Show them that they can make a difference in the world. We can expand their awareness to see that there is a world out there bigger than me or mine. That happened for me when I was young. We can show them how to connect across lines that often divide people. We can help them take seriously Tikkun Olam, to be repairers of the world. So, the circle, the practices, for each of these, we are living in a golden era of access. If you've got a framework and you know what to search for, 5 minutes will give you all kinds of wisdom, ancient and contemporary, right at our fingertips. Here's what to search for. Search for the 4 categories of spiritual practice. How can I help my child? How can I help my teenager meditate? How can I help my child, my teenager, serve or love learning? Then hit on a good story, a good idea, put it in your file. Check your file each time you get in the car with them. Give our kids that. Give our kids the practices. We give them a house in which their spirituality can grow and thrive and flourish. Well, I'm glad you hung in with these videos. Let's do that for our kids. Talk to you.